Welcome to Books and Beyond by That Guy Jay. I am your host, That Guy Jay. And before we get to our guest portion of the episode, we should probably quickly do our watch of the day. Today's watch of the day is the Orient Bambino. This is the small second version. This has a very, very vintage feel to it. Back about 100 years ago, most watches had a small second hand. They hadn't worked out how to have the big sweeping second hand yet. This is a pretty basic watch. It does have a date complication, very small right here. I think that this is one of the best affordable mechanical dress watches you can get. You can get these for under $200 on Amazon. They come in many different colors. You can get different color straps, different color dials, and even different dial layouts, and it is a great option for an entry level dress watch. But, anyways, let's jump into the main portion of our episode today. So, let's just get right into it. And I'm joined by a very special guest today, an amazing wildlife photographer. He's actually my cousin, Jacob. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason. I'm happy to be here.
Now, we haven't had a chance to talk in quite some time, but I've always been wondering, how did you get into photography, and was the answer your mom?
So that's definitely like a good starting point because, as you know, she had a camera with her all throughout my childhood. And as much as she likes to bring it up sometimes, it truly wasn't her that started it. Like, it gave me the familiarity, but for a while, I really didn't have a whole lot of interest in photography. It was once I started up a job up in Alaska where I truly grew my passion for it. I work as a fisheries biologist up in Alaska, all throughout the state, all along the coast, and it put me in a lot of interesting towns and ports and places where there were just beautiful scenery. There were animals that I had never had a chance to experience before out in the wild. And I started just taking my phone and taking pictures of whatever I saw as I was walking around. And one day I decided, hey, I like doing this. I like sharing them with people. What if I bought a camera and tried it out that way and just slowly built up sort of my interest and my skills from there, watching YouTube videos and just a lot of trial and error with thousands and thousands of horrible pictures that just then grew to be better eventually.
Yeah, you gotta take some bad ones to figure it out. Now, what kind of gear did you start with when you decided to get a camera? Did you I know a lot of, people with wildlife go, like, with a crop sensor, and when you got started, Canon and Nikon were probably still the big 2.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started late 2020, like November, and so I guess I don't know the total timeline for gear and stuff, but I don't think Sony was as big at that time. And who I went to was actually one of my best friends from college who he does a lot of photography. He was like the head of our college's photography club and all that. So it was like, perfect. You're who I'm going to ask. I asked him questions and everything. And he was a Nikon guy. So he gave me some examples. And I ended up going with the Nikon D500, which is a DSLR. And I love that camera. It's a great sort of, it's hard to say with prices, but I think it's more in the mid range of sort of starter cameras. And that's a powerful, great, fast camera that I was able to take all over the place and take a lot of great photos. And some of my favorite photos are still from that camera, even after upgrading to some mirrorless camera.
Yeah, I went Canon years ago just because it was what I was most familiar with, and then actually at my sister's
Mhm.
wedding, your mom let me mess around. She had the Canon 70D back then,
Mhm.
and I had a lot of fun just playing around with that at the wedding, so that's what I ended up going with in I think it was, like, 2014. I was torn between that and Sony had just gotten on my radar, but I couldn't quite justify it yet because they didn't have the lenses yet back then,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
Sony's definitely. came into its own the last couple years. I feel like lots of people are going with them, and I think a big thing is they do really well in their marketing, and also they do a lot of good video stuff. The specs on their camera are really nice with video, which is the way a lot of social media apps and things sort of push towards is sort of video content.
Yeah, they seem to kind of be ahead of the mirrorless curve too. They were an
Yeah.
early adapter.
Yeah, definitely.
I just recently got a new camera for my birthday. I got a
Mhm.
Fujifilm XS20, and it's my first time spending an extended amount of time with a mirrorless, and it's crazy the
Yeah.
advancements from a DSLR.
Yeah, what are you thinking of your new camera?
It's great so far. I got it. It's hybrid and it's pretty decent for video as well. I haven't had a chance to mess around with that much, but I would like to learn how to do videography a little bit better. I've been
Mhm.
having to learn how to edit because of this podcast, so it's like my editing skills are very basic. But I figured some actual good footage would be a fun way to motivate myself to practice a little bit more. Now
Yeah,
you do
exactly.
a pretty strong mix of still images and videography. Do you have a preference in which one you like more, or is it just
Um,
all one thing to you?
it's really just depends on what's happening right in front of me, and a lot of the time, it's difficult to choose. I really like doing both, but there's something that is to be said for, like, when you get that perfect sort of nice little tail,
Yeah.
uh, that nice image where you just get that, like, because I do lots of wildlife photography, that, like, frozen moment of something happening. One of my favorite photos I've ever taken is a sea lion coming like out of the water with a fish in its mouth, and right behind it is a seagull like getting ready to take off, and its wings are like perfectly stretched out. Oh shit. Uh, sorry, 1 second. I need to take this. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was an Alaska number, so I had to pick up in case it was work
Yeah, no
stuff.
problem. That's what we're saying. Oh yeah, the stills versus the video.
Yeah, yeah, just being able to capture that still moment, I think there's something a lot more satisfying about it than video. Like, when I can put together, like, a good compilation with videos or make the videos are cool to tell a lot more of a story with a lot of moments, but I think some of those, like, just brief moments that happen that you can capture with a photo are just sorta they're hard to beat, but I love doing both. I find it hard to decide whether to take a photo or video many times and just sorta go with my gut and hope it's right.
Yeah. Now what is your current like gear loadout look like? And because you're on and off of fishing boats for work, and
Yeah.
I've seen you've gotten some amazing shots even from doing, when you're at work. So you must be limited in space having to go on and off boats like that. So what does your current setup look like?
Yeah, so I'm definitely pretty limited. Um, I think something that because this hobby has grown with my job, like, I didn't really get into photography before I did it. Everything I buy sort of I take into account that I have to carry it places, and I don't get to have lots of baggage or anything like that. Everything has to fit in my backpack. So I have the Nikon Z8 with a Tamron 70 to 300 lens for the Z8. Then I also have a 180 to 600 that, depending on my contract, I'll either bring it or not. It just sort of depends how much I think I'm going to be getting on and off of boats, or just what the job will entail. And then I also have, pretty sure it's a 24 millimeter lens. It's one I don't use as much as the other, so I can't really remember what it is, but I like to use it sometimes for when I'm trying to do more portraits for my friends, family, and then if I try and do more sort of vlog style stuff and take videos of myself while I'm out in the field, I'll usually put that lens on.
Yeah. I think this is a good testament to third party lenses being better than people think. I actually saw a clip of a podcast the other day, and I think they were trying to rage bait people a little bit, but they were basically saying, especially they were Canon shooters, and they're like, "Oh, don't buy Sigma or Tamron, just
Yeah,
spend the money on Canon glass." And it's like the price difference is huge, and you
yeah,
have amazing results. And I know Tamron and Sigma are they used to be smaller brands, but they've gotten big.
yeah. No, yeah, Tamron, my 70 to 300, I have nothing but good things to say about it. I'm sure if I was shooting on a similar lens for Nikon, which, to be honest, doesn't exist right now, so Nikon should get on that. Uh, but everything I've shot on it has been great. Like it might be a little slower than something that was like native glass, but overall I can't really say there's too much of a difference. Like I try it's still nice to get the Nikon gear. That's what I aim for, but again, price and versatility, sometimes you need to look elsewhere, and I've really had no problems with Tamron. I haven't really tried any Sigma stuff, but I've heard similar things to Sigma that they've sort of caught up in a way that they work just as well as sort of your more name brand stuff.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to consider too is, you know, a fixed f2.8 zoom lens sounds great in theory, but they get heavy real quick,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
they get very
definitely.
big, not as portable.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my friends, just got one of the Prime 400s, and that thing is just massive, and the shots are beautiful, but for sort of my setup and what I have to do, it wouldn't be able to be used as much just because it's such a large lens, both in weight and size.
Yeah, and I watch one YouTube channel where they use a 600 pretty often, and
Yeah.
it's a husband and wife, and the wife has been giving exercise advice on how to be able to take photos with it because
Yeah.
it's so heavy. They're in Connecticut and they're big into birding,
Okay,
and
nice.
it's I'm sure it's a great lens for that, but it's like it does not look very fun.
Mhm. Yeah,
That
no, some of those big lenses, like, I if you're taking a shot handheld and you're holding it up, you're, like, gotta really focus on holding your abs steady and arms steady. It gets heavy fast holding it up like that.
Yeah, I would imagine it does. I've never done a ton with big zoom lenses because I mean I'm in the city, so
Yeah.
I do a lot of street photography with smaller prime lenses.
Mhm.
But I can imagine that just having the arm strength, especially when you're waiting for an animal that's not trying to
Yeah,
cooperate with you to get in the exact position.
exactly. It can
N-
be tough, and you get pretty creative with how you start taking the weight off your arms if you can, like, put it on a backpack or, like, if I can sit and still see the subject, I'll sort of, like, prop it up on my foot on the end of my boot just to take some of that weight off your arms.
Now, how far out into wilderness are you going to get some of these shots? Because you have some incredible shots of grizzly bears and all sorts of wildlife. I would imagine when you go looking for a shot, it's like an all day excursion.
So, it really varies. I've had some great shots where I'm, like, hours away of walking, and I've had some that are, like, just off regular trails. Something that's not as, like, wild as, say, like, a grizzly bear, some owls and things here in Virginia, like, you can have them it's on I have a photo from last year where it's, like, there's a very frequented path, like, it's paved over, it's, like, hundreds of people walk it a day, and right next to it, there's a tree that has 2 owls that live up there, and, like, people walk right by and have no idea, and then but some of the bears, I've had to go on, like, float planes and things and done sort of day trips like that where you fly out over to this was Lake Clark National Park in Alaska, and you land on the beach and you're with a guide for the day, and you just walk around looking for bears because they're so sort of present there. But yeah, those
That
are some of the things I've done, and also spent a lot of time up in the Arctic where we're in the middle of nowhere, nowhere. It's just sort of open land, and it's really cool.
Yeah, it looks it from what you share on Instagram, and I encourage everyone to check out your Instagram because there's amazing photos and videos on there.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, what does your work schedule end up being like? Are you out on a boat for a couple weeks and then you get some time off, or
So that also kind of depends on the season. Like obviously there are different fishing seasons depending on time of year, and there are boats that I've been on 14-day trips on a 45-foot boat with 6 people on it. So it was
oh, that's
pretty
crowded.
packed, and yeah, that was a long trip. But then I've also been on boats where it's like you're out for maybe a day, and they'll fill up, and it really just depends on what they're fishing for. Usually, the halibut trips are longer because they're still catching everything. It's on a long line, so they're taking it off individual hooks. And the shorter trips are trawler trips where they're using a big net that sort of scoops up a school of fish and brings it in.
Now, how do you find your time on the boats in general though? Are the crews cool with you being there, or are you just like an extra body in the way, or how are they? Are they confrontational?
Yes to all of that. It really depends what boat you get on. I've had great vessels, I've had pretty terrible vessels, but I'd say 90% of them are either fine with you there or indifferent to you there. It's only and then within that 10% that isn't that, it's usually like 9% of that it's more of a passive aggressive sort of thing, and
Right.
then, like, maybe 1% of just being horrible.
And
So,
I think the area you're in is, to most people, they would be familiar with it from Deadliest Catch
yep,
and seeing
yep.
some of the crazy crews and the crazy conditions. Have you been out in any really scary weather?
Yeah, I've been out on sorta 20-foot seas and storms on different occasions. It was really one that I'm pretty sure it definitely got to, like, 20 feet, and it was just we were on a long line boat that was, I think, probably around 60 feet or so, and just a storm hit us pretty hard as they were pulling fish up. So I just remember I stopped doing my work because I kept getting slammed by waves, but they still had to get their line in. So I was just standing out in their bait shed, and I was just watching these walls of waves coming at us, and it's just a moment I don't think I'll ever forget. I wish I had, like, my phone or camera or something to record it, but I knew if I went into the galley to go get stuff, I wasn't gonna come back out. Like, it was it was pretty
Yeah,
bad, but it was
that's
just
got to
something to
be really
witness.
intense.
Yeah.
But so you're kind of at your own discretion. If you have to stop doing your work, you can make that call yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's anything safety related, I'm allowed to make that call, and the captain as well, like, they can that part's sort of a gray area, like, they can say, like, "This isn't safe, like, go in," and it's technically still my call, but usually if they're saying that, like, I I get it, I don't wanna be in an unsafe space anyway, so
Yeah,
try
kind
and
of
get out
default
of
to
there.
their expertise.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, obviously, being in Alaska for work has given you an amazing opportunity for wildlife photography. But have you found yourself, since getting into this hobby, like kind of basing your travel around where you think you can get good photos? Is that something that you take into account?
Yeah, it's definitely something I take into account. It's honestly, it's turned into my biggest hobby. It's what I spend probably the most time doing throughout the year. So it's something that I like to plan my travels around the best I can. It doesn't always work out that way, but just I always have that in the back of my mind. Like if I know I'm going somewhere, I first, because I prefer wildlife, look to see what potential areas would be around wherever I'm going. And then after that, look at sort of landmarks, interesting architecture, things like that, like sites to go see in the area that could be fun to photograph. Or I have a drone as well that I like to fly. So just areas that would be cool to capture either on film or in a photo.
What kind of drone do you have? That's something that I've always been curious about. My dad's always been very curious about drones. You know him and flying.
Yeah. I have the DJI Mini 3 Pro, and it's a great drone. It's, like, very small, which is nice. It fits right in the palm of my hand, and it has great video quality for the size. Um, yeah, I've been able to use it sort of wherever I go as long as it follows drone guidelines, and yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about it. Because again, I don't have a lot of space in my backpack for things, and it fits perfectly with the rest of my gear.
Now, when you travel, do you check your gear or do you carry it on? I've always been paranoid about putting
Yeah,
cameras in
I
checked
carry
bags.
everything on. Like, if I end up getting even more gear and do things specifically for photography, maybe I'll get, like, a Pelican case or something that can get checked, but as of right now, it all goes in my backpack and stays with me. There have been a few times trying to go out to, like, remote Alaskan islands where the space is a little tough inside the cabin that they've tried to be like, "Hey, we'll just check it," and I'm like, "There is too much equipment in here. Can we please find some other way to do this?" And usually we find somewhere to stash the bag, but
Yeah, it's like, you're like,
yeah.
"This is my life all in one bag. Please don't do
Yeah,
that to me."
exactly.
Now, outside of Alaska, where's been your favorite place that you've, been able to, shoot for wildlife photography?
My favorite place probably Thailand. I got to be there for a little over 3 weeks with my girlfriend, and we sort of did multiple little sections of a trip in one where we did some of the bigger cities, we did some of the islands, and then my favorite part, outside of some beach time, which was really nice, was some of the national parks there. And we got to see some pretty amazing animals. We got to see Asian elephants in the wild. We got to see a sun bear, which was really interesting, and just lots of really cool animals walking through the jungles in Thailand with a guide for a couple days.
That's very
And
cool.
yeah, it was an incredible experience.
I've had some friends that visited Thailand, and some of the beaches with the giant rock cliffs are just absolutely
Yeah.
breathtaking. That
Yeah,
must
it
have been
is
pretty
somewhere
cool
that
to
I
check
would
out.
yeah, it's somewhere I would recommend to anyone if you ever get a chance, like, it's beautiful, and there's all kinds of things to do no matter what you like to do.
Now, are there ever any issues with having your camera in other places?
Um, Not really, I haven't really ran into anything. I've had different, airport security places, like, have me pull out all my gear at different points and go through everything, like, turn things on and off. But other than that, no, I've never really had any gear problems.
And do you have a favorite type of wildlife? Like, you have shot a lot of birds, I've seen,
Yeah.
especially in Alaska, a lot of eagles. Do you prefer birds or just in general whatever you come across?
Uh, I like mammals a lot. They're fun, they're cute, but I like birds too. But with birds, I always sort of say I like the birds that kill things. I
Yeah,
like
the
the
predators.
raptors, the predator, yeah, like that. So I'm not as much of a songbird guy. Like if it's a pretty bird with some cool like plumage and everything, I'll definitely take some shots, but it's not something I get as excited over. Sort of the bigger birds, the mammals. I like the reptiles too. I haven't had as much time with them because other than my time in Thailand, I'm usually in the colder places that don't have as many reptiles. So, yeah, definitely mammals are pretty big up there. They're harder to find a lot of the time too. So when you get them, it's a very cool feeling.
Now, what's the longest you've set up and waited for the right shot?
Um, I don't know, there's a lot of times, but one of the ones that I can think of being the longest was probably this summer where, when I was up in the Arctic, I was trying to get a shot of a snowy owl, like, jumping and flying right towards me, and I would go out after work each day, and I knew where this one owl had been hunting for a while, and it just kept going up and down the coastline right there, and I would just park my truck, I would hop into the bed of the truck, and just sit there and wait for it to hopefully fly my way. I learned sort of some of the mounds because there are no trees or bushes or anything that far north, but they still like to get higher up so they can see. And I found some of the mounds it would prefer to fly up onto. And I would just sort of line myself up with one and hope to get it. And it took I think it took about a week to get the shot I was really looking for, and that was probably at least 4 to 5 hours every evening sitting out there from usually, like, 7 until 11, somewhere around there, sometimes a little later, just because during that time of year, you have sunlight all through the night.
Yeah, and I think that's like I said, I haven't done a ton of wildlife photography, but I think that's something I've learned from watching people on YouTube is that you see these amazing shots and you
Mhm.
don't realize how many hours went into it because
Yeah.
it's like even if you get the right shot, you have to have the right light, you have to get the right angle, you have to get an animal
Yeah.
that doesn't know that it's cooperating to cooperate.
Yeah,
It's an
pretty much. There's
incredible amount of patience.
Yeah, there is so much time that goes into I can't say every shot 'cause sometimes you get lucky and it just happens right away, but most shots, like, there's a lot of planning, waiting, and trying to get it right. So, it's, something that there's a lot of work that goes into it. I wish it was as easy as just showing up every time and snapping a few shots, but it's usually a lot of build up to it.
Yeah, and a lot of misses.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
what is your post processing process like? I'm assuming you use Lightroom.
Yeah, yeah, I use, Lightroom, and so when I come back from a shoot, I hopefully have a lot of photos to go through, and I'll sort of plug it into my CF Express reader and go through all the photos within Lightroom, choose all the ones that I think have potential to be good, and bring them over, and then do sort of a second cut when they're in Lightroom where I'm, like, sort of zooming in more, checking, like, is this, like, focused right, and just sort of checking a lot more of the finer details, and then
Right.
after that, I'll get rid of whatever I'm not I don't like, and then I'll start, sort of adjusting color and masking some, and how much I do really depends on the shot, and I just sort of do it like a flow, kind of, and whatever I feel like the photo needs, I just sort of go with it. I don't use any sort of presets or anything like that that I just don't think work really well with wildlife photography. I
Yeah,
think
I can
really
imagine because there's so many
yeah,
inconsistencies.
there's so many variables on every shot, even if they were shot 5 minutes apart. The sun could
Right.
be a little bit more covered by a cloud, and so that's again something that adds a lot of time to sort of the wildlife photo realm is even the editing. There aren't
Yeah.
many cheats you can do. It's usually just you'd strap in and go through each photo and have to edit them separately.
Just take it one by one.
Yeah.
And this I'm currently trying to figure out my flow with things and quickly realizing I'm going to need more memory, especially
Yeah.
with the video files from these podcasts. So, do
Yeah.
you have a bunch of external hard drives? Is that how you manage it?
Yeah, so I have 2 external hard drives, one that's 5 terabytes that I actually just filled up, and one that's 6 terabytes that is starting to get stuff added to. So,
I've already realized within a few outings, I was like, I need to organize better because I just had everything in one folder, and I was like, nope, this isn't cutting it. Like
yeah.
file
Yeah,
sizes are a lot bigger than 10 years ago when I was last shooting.
yeah. No, organization's tough. I don't do great at it. I need to get better. I am a self-proclaimed photo hoarder, where even the photos that I'm not really using, they're just still sitting. The were on my card, and now they're just sitting on my hard drive. That I should definitely clear out the ones that are like out of focus or anything like that, but I can't get myself to do it. I'm trying to do better with this current hard drive, but we'll see how that goes.
I can relate. I think I have 12,000 photos on my iPhone, and it's like I don't
Yeah,
need that many, but
yeah,
I'll sometimes I'll go back to the beginning and start scrolling through. And there's especially a lot of Jean when she was little, and it's like even if
yeah,
there's triplicates, I can't get rid of. Like they're
yeah,
slightly different. I can't get rid of them.
yeah, exactly. It's tough.
Now, how do you do what software do you use for your video editing?
So for video editing, I use Adobe Premiere Pro,
Okay.
and uh, yeah, I like it. I am not as skilled in that as I am with Lightroom. I don't know. Video editing has always felt like a little more intimidating, I guess, than just doing the individual photos. So there are just so many like different aspects that you can change and like pan and do all kinds of stuff that just I feel like I know what to do for what I do and how I post things and what I'm creating, but that's about it. My knowledge isn't as extensive within Premiere Pro. It probably should be with how long I've been using it.
Yeah, I've started with DaVinci Resolve,
Okay.
and like I've just scratched the surface of it. I've watched, they actually have a whole tutorial series for free, which is very
Oh,
nice.
nice. That's awesome.
It's dry, but it's informative. And but
Yeah. Yeah. How are
there
you
really is
liking DaVinci? I've heard good things about it.
the reason I went with it is partially the cost, but also
Yeah.
because so many people online said that it's better for color grading. And I
Okay.
haven't even begun to scratch the surface with knowing how to do that, but I figured I'll learn the one that people say is better for that.
Yeah.
But there really is. There's so much to it. And I'm just trying to figure out how to create a solid timeline for now and still fine tuning my abilities with that. There really is so much to know with video editing.
Yeah.
I
There
haven't
is.
used Lightroom in years, but I did use Lightroom for several years, so I'm still way more familiar with that. And now
Mhm.
I'm trying out with the Fuji came with a 3-month free trial to Capture One. So I'm
Okay.
giving
I
that a
don't think
try
I've ever heard of that
for
one, so
the unfortunate part of Fujifilm is apparently the raw files don't always process well in Lightroom.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they get some weird effects that happen as you tweak the photo. So everyone on the forums has said that Capture One handles Fuji better. So 3 months free. I figure I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, I'll default back to Lightroom just because I know it a little better.
Yeah.
One of
Nice.
the good things with Fuji so far, though, is they have all the presets for film simulations,
Mhm.
so you can get some very solid JPEGs right out of the camera that don't need a ton of editing. So that's been kind of fun
Nice.
too.
Yeah, that's cool.
I spent years saying I was going to go Sony. I was convinced for years I'd be a Sony shooter, and then when it came time to actually spend the money, the A6700 is a couple $100 more, but the same price range.
Okay.
And for some reason, I don't know. I looked at so many stills, and I just loved the color science from Fuji, especially for
Mhm.
city photography. So I was like, I got to give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think so much of it's, like, preference, and a lot of them within every price bracket, all the companies are very similar at this point, in my opinion. Um, yeah, I think it's just really what you prefer, what your preferences are, and then just go with that and make the best of what you have.
Yeah, I would agree. And people have always said, and I think it's still pretty true, is good glass is going to go a lot further than having
Yeah,
the newest, body. You don't have to upgrade the bodies as often. And
yeah,
I have
exactly.
I have heard some people say that Sony's felt more like using a gadget than a camera because it's all using menu systems more than like dials and physical buttons. So
Mhm.
that part never really appealed to me. And Fuji is known for having lots of old school dials like a film camera would. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Nikon has lots of different dials and buttons too, and I sorta like that feeling. I haven't really shot anything else, but I've seen some of my friends' cameras and stuff, and I don't know, I like the feeling of the Nikon, especially compared to, like, a Sony. They usually, at least in my experience, I've seen them, they're sorta smaller, and I don't know, I at least have big enough hands. I like that big grip on the Nikon, and just it
Yeah,
feels sorta
that's one thing I've
right
had
when
to
you're
adjust
holding
because
it.
I had a battery grip on the Canon, so the DSLR was bigger and the grip, and the Fujifilm
Yeah,
is pretty small in comparison. I've had to get used to that because I do have big hands. But the
yeah,
flip side is I can fit it in like a little sling bag with a
yeah,
prime lens, and it takes up no space.
yeah, definitely.
Ha Have you ever tried shooting with any of the Sonys? I know some people say that they're like the sharpest, always tack sharp photos, but I've never really tried one other than in a store.
Uh, I haven't really done much. I helped a friend with some videos, and they have a Sony, but they basically, like, put all the settings and just handed me the camera, and they were like, "Press record, then stop record." So
Okay.
I don't have any real experience shooting with them. Same with
Now,
Canon,
do you
both.
have anyone in Alaska that likes to shoot as well, or do you just go by yourself?
Uh, so yes, I do have friends that like to shoot, and then it just depends if I'm in the same city as them. One is in Kodiak. He lives there. He has a great wildlife account as well. And I was with him a lot this winter. And then I have another friend that does a similar position to me where he also gets sent all over the state. So then it just depends if we sort of are able to be in the same place at the same time.
That's very cool, though, that even occasionally you have someone to go shoot with, and
Yeah.
I imagine you guys
That's,
can swap information on good
yeah.
places to go.
That's what I've loved about sort of growing my page is I've been able to meet new people. I've been able to speak with other people that love wildlife, and like if you go somewhere new and you just like, "Hey, anybody in this area?" Usually people are willing to go out and shoot together, and they'll help sort of show you some of their spots where if I had to just show up somewhere and just walk into a forest, being like, "Okay, what's here?" I mean, you might find something, you might not, but that local knowledge is always so helpful.
Yeah, especially somewhere like Alaska. The state is huge.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
don't if you don't get pointed in a direction, I imagine it's a lot
Yeah.
of wandering and hoping.
Yeah, my friend that I was with this, winter, his account's Chris Luck Photo, um, or Chris Luck Photography, can't remember, but one of the 2. Um, he took me to a spot with an ermine, which is, like, kinda like a small weasel-looking thing, kinda like a wild ferret's the best way to describe it if like, to someone that doesn't know what an ermine is, and he knew this spot, and it was, like, right under a bridge that's, like, an hour or so out of town, where I never would have been able to find that
Oh,
with sort of.
was that the white one you posted
Yeah,
on?
yeah, the white little sorta.
Yeah, those were great photos.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and
Yeah,
those I owe a lot of credit to him for just showing me that spot, and we'd go out there together most weekends to just sorta hang out with the animal because it had no problem with people there because it was usually just the 2 of us, and it would just run around and hunt and do his thing, and he'd come over, sniff us for a second, then go back out, sorta like a cat or something, just checking in and going and doing his thing.
yeah, that's very cool. That's one thing I found on TikTok within, for me, the book community. I've gotten big into reading as a hobby, and that's part of why I started this podcast, was just to learn more about people's passions. And it's so cool how whatever hobby or niche you end up in, there is usually a cool community somewhere within that. You just have to find it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about social media is it allows you to find people that have similar interests that you probably wouldn't have had any way to connect with them before that. So just it's created friendships that I never would have thought I would have been able to have, and I'm very grateful for that.
Now, on the little bit past the hobbyist point, you actually do have a website now where people can get prints of some of these amazing shots that you have. How have you found that experience so far of kind of creating a little side business from it?
Yeah, so my website's printsbyjb.com, and I sell prints, photos that I've taken, and it's been interesting. It's been definitely a learning experience figuring out how to sort of market yourself, and just also creating the website and making sure it's all up and running all the time, make sure everything looks nice. It's a lot to think about, especially when you're first getting started. But it's been nice. It's always fun when I sort of open up my email and see like, oh, someone bought a print like an hour ago, and just it's a fun experience. It's been a nice way to make some extra money, and I usually put that into sort of planning out experiences or gear that I need to then go out and do other things, and
Yeah, to further the hobby, fund it a
yeah,
little bit. It's
exactly.
that's
So,
got to be a pretty cool feeling too, though, knowing that your print is ending up in someone else's home.
yeah. Yeah, it is a very cool feeling. I can't tell you, like, how stressful it feels sometimes, just I want them to love it when it arrives to them just as much as I would imagine they felt when they felt good enough to pay me money for it.
Right.
So, like, just trying to make sure the print comes out great, like, everything goes smoothly, it gets there within a reasonable amount of time. It's something I take very seriously, and yeah, I haven't had any issues yet. I hope not to have any, but it's something that I always think about with every order, just wanting to make it the best experience possible.
Now, are you printing them yourself, or do you have a
Uh,
printer that does it for you?
yeah, I have a printer that I go to that, sort of helps me put them together, and then we sort of look it over and send it out. Um, yeah, because that helps because I don't really have a home base at the moment. I'm sort of all over the place.
Yeah, that's what I was
Um,
wondering.
yeah, so I have prints that I have here that I sell as well, but it's usually more of a limited selection, and more limited stuff. Like we've been selling T-shirts as well, and
Oh, very
just
cool.
yeah, things like that. That the stuff that stays stocked here in Virginia is much more limited and usually more local that it's sold. And then I've had someone buy things from Canada. I've had in England. So that's usually through the print service where we can work it out a little better and get the prints out to them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any trips planned for this summer where you're gonna go shoot anywhere exciting or anything lined
Um
up?
Nothing totally lined up right now. So we might actually, me, my mom, and my girlfriend might go up to Nantucket, which there wouldn't be as much sort of wildlife stuff, really. I mean, we can try and find stuff, but that's the main little trip. And then I'll be headed out to Alaska in July. So hopefully, just get more stuff out there. Just the job I'm doing this summer, it'll be a lot of remote stream work where hopefully I can bring my camera. I don't know yet. We'll see. I don't totally know what the job entails. And if I do that, it'll probably be a lot of bears and things like that walking around the streams this summer.
That'll be very cool. That's something different.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot.
You cut out there for a second, didn't hear that.
Oh, sorry. I just said, yeah, it's something I'm looking forward to a lot. Just getting to do something different. Usually I'm out on the sea, but doing some stream work is just a change of pace kind of thing.
Now, you mentioned a lot of bears. How is it being out in the wilderness knowing that there's bears around, and how close do you have to get to photograph them? Was that intimidating at first?
Uh, to be honest, I might be a little crazy because it wasn't as scary as it probably should have been. Um, so I will say the bears in Alaska, especially coastal Alaska, they aren't as aggressive as like a grizzly you'd see probably in the middle of the US, like up in the Tetons or something, because they have so much food, like so many food options along the coast of Alaska with salmon and sedges and berries and all kinds of things. So always, always, always be very aware of bears and give them their distance. But like, I haven't really had an issue with them. Um, I the main place I was in when I first started my job in Alaska was Kodiak, which is just sort of it's known for their bears in a lot of ways. And I would be hiking and I would sort of come across them at different points. And I think just knowing that you should let them know you're there, give them a big sort of radius, that's always important. But sort of how far I've been to shoot them, it's varied. I've been quite far away with my longer lens, and then I've had some that probably about 100 yards away or so. I had one where I was walking down a stream and there was sort of a bend in it. And I was actually on the phone with my mom, just talking to her as I was searching for stuff. I turn around, like come around the bend, and there were the two bears I was looking for. They're two siblings. They were much closer than I I wanted at all. Like I was not intending that, and one of them just stands up on its back paws and just like standing up like a person and just sort of looks at me, and I just sort of like did what I said, so I like said, "Hey bear, hi," all that, just like letting it know you're there, and then just slowly backing up while you don't want to turn and move fast or anything, just sort of slowly make your way out of there. Um, so that one was closer than I really wanted. But just sort of being up in Alaska and definitely Kodiak, you get some pretty close experiences. Because then later that day, I had another sort of come quickly around a bend as I was actually trying to leave that river. It was like right where the path to go back to the parking lot was, and had to sort of scramble up a little hill. Just it in no way seemed aggressive. It was just more curious. You're like, "Oh, who are you?" And it was
Yeah.
just coming over a little bit too close. So just sort of
Do you
got out of its path.
do you carry bear spray or anything with you?
Yeah, yeah, I carry bear spray. And that sort of it helps. It makes you feel a little better.
A little bit more secure?
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, having never been anywhere like that, it's like, that sounds so intimidating,
Yeah, it
but it's gotta be a
again,
cool experience, especially
yeah.
when you, because you have some great shots of them as well. You've had some pretty good videos of them, I think, if I recall correctly too.
Yeah, yeah, I've had some pretty good experiences with them, in various locations, like, Kodiak was where I first sort of found them, fell in love with being around them, and then I've seen them some in Lake Clark National Park, uh, where that's more the guided thing, and then some also up in the Arctic. We get them, like usually see them once or twice a year during the summer while we're up there, so, yeah, they're incredible to be around. They're just so big and strong, and just watching them move, and they're also adorable too while they do it. So
Yeah, that seems fun. How do you like being up in the Arctic? That's gotta be a very different experience.
yeah, I love it because I love the animal opportunities. I think it's a very interesting place. It's an odd place to be because the work I do is on the coast by one of the oil fields. That's all the people working around you, other than the scientists I'm with. They're all doing oil work around that area. So there's nothing other than industry stuff up there. So it's definitely very isolated, which both I find very fun, but it can also wear on you for a while after. We're usually up there about 2 months at a time. So it just takes
Oh,
a lot
wow, yeah,
out
I
of
can
you.
imagine that you're
Yeah.
probably
And
excited to get there and happy to leave.
exactly. A little bit of both.
Now, outside of photography, what do you find yourself doing? Like, what other passions would you say you have? I like to just always check in with people and learn a little bit more about what they like.
Yeah, I really like playing basketball. Um, I occasionally play video games, but honestly, not too much of that. But a lot of basketball, hiking, just being outdoors in general, I like to go do. But so much of my time, I feel like, gets centered around the photography now that I guess I'm usually either working out, going out searching for photos, playing basketball, or I don't know, I like to watch shows, Netflix, Hulu, Max, all that. So,
Well, yeah, that kind of works out. The photography goes hand in hand with the hiking and outdoors life,
yeah,
especially in Alaska.
exactly. And again,
Ho-
that's how it all sort of started was I was doing those activities without a camera, and then I just decided like, "Oh, it'd be really cool to be able to capture this just for memories and then also just to have and mess around with while I'm out there, just an added activity to something I was already doing, sort of.
Yeah. Now, did you originally plan to go to Alaska when you finished college, or did that just was that happenstance?
Not at all. It just sort of happened. Um, I graduated with a marine biology degree and was searching for jobs, and the I was looking at Indeed, applying to a lot of jobs, and this one had a good hook of, "Hey, do you wanna be paid to travel Alaska?" And I was like, "Sure, that sounds cool." And it was a fisheries job, which, like, is in the same realm of what I studied. Like, I had done 2 fisheries classes and had a general fisheries knowledge, and then just went from there, started the job, and have been within the fisheries world for the past 5.5 years now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's been really cool to see your Instagram grow and see this hobby grow for you. I've always been watching from the sidelines here. I'm a big fan of your work.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it's been about an hour here, so I'll let you get back to your day. But thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your schedule to come do the podcast with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a great time talking and getting to be part of the beyond of books and beyond.
Yeah, it's I've had mostly authors on so far, so it's very cool to branch out and have one of my
Nice.
other hobbies have someone that's as experienced as you are now come on. So in the episode description, I'll have any links that you want. I'll have your website, Instagram, and I know you have a TikTok as well, but I don't know if you post on there as often. But I'll share that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't post there as often. I'm trying to get better about posting it. Um, yeah, I also technically have a YouTube where I'm putting shorts. Both YouTube and TikTok are very underloved at the moment. Most of my work goes on to Instagram and my website, but
Okay, yeah. So Instagram
trying
would be the
to
best place for people
yeah,
to check you out.
yeah, Instagram's definitely the best spot. That's where
All
I
right.
post most often.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me again this week. And I will be back next week with another special guest. And I will see you later. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.